All right, fam. Welcome into this edition of Midweek. Pastor Owen here. Glad you're with us as we continue the conversation coming from Sunday into how it applies to our lives. Look at it from the angle of what do we do with it now that we've heard and been taught. We want to actually apply that into our lives. So that's what this is all about. If you aren't familiar with us, this is Heights Church out here in Prescott, Arizona. We have services on Sundays in person, 8:30, 10:30. We have services online every Sunday, 10:30 and 6 p.m. That's where some of this content originates from. So this week we had a guest speaker who is amazing, named Chris. He continued our conversation about the way of the apprentice, this idea that we follow Jesus like an apprentice learns a trade from someone that's an expert. So we're taking that view of Jesus being like our expert, our pattern for how we live, and then we're learning from him and trying to work that out in our lives. And so that's kind of where we're centering this conversation. I've got two guests with me. One person is someone you know well, one other person is someone new, and as of this week, a tradition on midweek, we have somebody new, something special happens. So we give them a little walk-up music. So I'm a big man with a tiny ukulele as I welcome in our guests. We got Pastor John with us. We also got a new face on here. It's Brian Multrup. Brian, this is for you, my friend. Boom. Welcome in. Attitude and Ukulele welcoming you in to this edition of Midweek. Brian's a great dude. Can't wait to introduce him to you. John, before we do that real quick, why don't you explain, because you know him better than I do, our guest this week, and kind of set up who he was and what he was talking about, if you don't mind, because you've known Chris for a while.
Yeah, so I met Chris, gosh, it was back when I was a middle school pastor, and he was doing camp at Lost Canyon for us, our winter camp up there. And I just remember like watching a room of middle schoolers who, if you haven't experienced Chris, you got to go experience him. And he'll even joke about like, he doesn't understand himself, which isn't true. He communicates way better than he gives himself credit for. But you can imagine a room of middle school students. And I remember watching him come out and their demeanor change. By the end, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And I mean, it's hard enough to capture middle school students, and that's just quality of who Chris Sidning is. And just his love for the Lord. Chris and I have had many a conversation where he is probably one of the smartest people I know, and just one of the realest when it comes to faith, and just having to take what life has brought along and apply it and walk it. And so, yeah, we're just so blessed. So we've had this relationship with Chris for a long time now. And then along came Ron, however many years ago that was, 8 years ago. And Ron and Chris are like best friends. And so it's just been this beautiful, like I told Chris this week, I'm like, man, you just feel like your family at this point. And he even said, since COVID, he's been a member of Heights. He's just been joining us online. And he says, I'm a secret member though. He ain't typing nothing in, so in the chat. But
yeah, so don't be like Chris. Say hi in the chat. Don't do that. You can talk in church online. You can chat.
You can chat. That's the beauty of online church. You can pass notes in church. So
exactly. No, I appreciated like his heart just shines through, no doubt. And even if you're like, okay, at the beginning, you're not sure. By the end, you're just drawn in.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just a beautiful human being. And you can tell. That's what I was thinking as I was listening to him talk about discipleship, being Jesus' apprentice. I'm like, this is the result of someone apprenticing themselves to Jesus for years. Like the beauty of his heart and his love for people, his love for God, his humor and joy in a very difficult circumstance that he walks through. It's just literally the most beautiful thing you could imagine.
And I don't remember if he did it at the 8:30, but at the 10:30, he told a story of the gas station, and where he got to essentially, people, I'm so sorry. And he's like, don't be, it's a blessing. And like knowing Chris, that's genuine. That's not just him talking Christianese. That's not like, he's found such beauty in the struggle. And I think that's what's, for me, every time I'm around him, man, I'm just so inspired that Jesus can step into moments that seem unredeemable and redeem them in such a way that, like for Chris, I mean, the amount of lives, and now he's got a book out, which, by the way, if you're watching this, you should have got an email, and in that email there's a link and you can go get his book. But yeah, just to see him write a book and step into that and share in a new format, essentially his story. I'm excited for him. He's such a good dude.
Yeah. So if you haven't done it already, you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel. When you do, you're going to get notified every time something coming from Sunday drops, along with things like midweek, morning coffee, other things. So
Hey, can you say subscribe again?
Subscribe.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You like slowed it down, man. You're like subscribe.
Subscribe. I almost said sub. And that's like, and I was like, okay, I can't do that because not everybody is like into YouTube land.
Hey, you can just sub to this page.
Okay, just sub. So I was like, subscribe. So just sub to this page, and then go back and look for Chris's message on Sunday. It's truly worth your time. It really is. And I think about Brian, as you're here, you're another guy who we've gotten to interact a little bit. You're someone that this idea of remaining as Jesus' apprentice and walking with him has really done some beautiful things in your life, my friend. You're one of these guys that's also super genuine. And I know every day's, some days are up, some days are down, but, I'd love to get into letting people know a little bit about who you are, and then really get into what's that apprenticeship to Jesus been like for you, how he found you and how you've ended up where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for letting me join this conversation. I actually, real quick, I remember my first time seeing Chris Simnane was at Lost Canyon last year at the men's retreat that we did. And it was just, it was so refreshing and awesome to see him again on stage. It's every time he speaks, it's something new, and or at least it hits home in a new way every time. So really an awesome story and a wonderful guy. So what was your question? What?
Okay, because I asked you a big question. So step one is, who are you right now as far as like, what's your role at Heights, what you up to? And then we'll kind of walk back.
Hang on. Let's make it a true midweek.
All right.
To make it easy. You ready?
Okay, here we go.
What's your favorite breakfast food?
Oh,
okay.
Breakfast food?
I'm just making it easy, man. Come on.
I love a good breakfast sandwich. Just like eggs, some turkey bacon, some cheese. It's compact. It's right there. I don't, there's a bunch of extra stuff, and I don't have to worry about very much cleanup or anything. So
now let me ask you this. How'd you feel if somebody slid across to you like, man,
now you're going next level. I wasn't going next level. I was just genuinely.
How would you feel? All right. Slide across this nice breakfast sandwich. John's a very good cook, by the way. He makes you a nice breakfast sandwich. He slides that across, and then he's got this little side of like these kind of like pork and beans next to it. It's like, hey, this is breakfast. How'd you feel? What would be going through your mind when you saw those beans served up next to that breakfast sandwich?
Well, am I a guest at their home and they're providing me this meal? Yeah, I mean, I'll eat it. Might be concerned about what some view as breakfast, but pork and beans is not necessarily something I would consider to be breakfast, but hey, it's some solid protein to start the day.
All right. That's all I needed to hear.
Pork and beans for breakfast is right up there with Olga sauce from Olga's in Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Yeah, okay, we can talk about this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We can talk about this.
Brian knows all about this.
He's up there in A2. He knows what's up.
Ypsilanti.
Ypsilanti?
Ypsilanti. You don't say the Y, not Ypsilanti.
Oh, dang it. Come on, Owen. We've been saying Ypsilanti forever.
This shows how much you
Ypsilanti.
know.
Okay.
When you go back to Detroit or to Michigan, I'll come with you this time and then really give you the authentic Detroit tour.
There we go.
Yeah, okay, so a little background here. So John and I literally right before COVID shut the world down, like the week before, John and I jumped up to a church in Ann Arbor doing some background for Prescott Valley. It's actually been a really influential trip, helped us see some things, which we are pretty soon going to get to show you. But okay, I'll set that aside for now. But in the process, I learned Brian is from Ann Arbor, which up there they call it, the area, they call it A2, which is like Ann Arbor A2. And then if I'd known it, we would have asked him for some restaurant recommendations, because I took John up there, and our very first effort, it was a struggle. It was this like place called Olga's, which is like if Denny's opened a Greek restaurant, right? Am I accurate? It's like Denny's is like, hey, let's not make pancakes anymore. We're gonna make gyros now. And it was very.
What was across the street? There was two right next to each other. It was Olga's, and what was the other one?
Probably Burger King. I don't know.
And it was, because it was like 2 for $5 or Olga's. So we were like, I don't know.
We're like, let's roll the dice. We'll go somewhere. And then later I texted Brian. I was like, dude, we went to Olga's. And it was like, and he was like, what? There was this very, like I said, it's Denny's meets Greek food and it wasn't in a good way. So.
Yeah, I mean, you would need to go to a more, I'm more familiar with the Detroit area, is where I grew up, but it's, you need to get that authentic Detroit Coney Island.
Ooh.
So like Detroit Coney dogs and a gyro or a honey, all these sort of Coney Island treats. Olga's, that like reminds me, like if Gateway Mall had just a little diner set up inside, because that's what it was in Michigan. Olga's was at like the one level open mall like that, and
oh man,
you go to Claire's or you go to Lids and then you stop by Olga's on your way out.
Gross. Yeah, but get yourself an Orange Julius and a gyro, and you're like,
did you get that free sample on the way out? Is what it is.
Then you go to Foot Locker, it's like check out some kicks. Just having a good day.
Solid Saturday.
So yeah, next time you come with us, Brian, for sure, man.
we need help, clearly.
Detroit has its own pizza, even. There's Detroit style pizza.
Yeah, I feel like
what is that? What is Detroit style pizza?
I guess it's kind of similar to what would be considered Chicago style, but it's more of a square deep dish. With the sauce, some sauce on top, or the sauce on top, and then the cheese and toppings right onto the crust.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. So I feel like
derailed is enough. I think I just train wrecked this whole thing. Sorry, everybody who's watching, and you're just like, what is this? This is midweek. Right.
In the chat, just go ahead and confirm the fact that beans are not for breakfast. That's great. And then here we go. Ready? I'm going to bring it back on track with one move, right? Because this is, I got skills. This is what I do. Tell us about how you got from Detroit to Prescott, man. What's that journey been like for you? And of course, we're talking a lot about what, this whole apprenticeship with Jesus and how that's been a huge part of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know me, I was battling addiction for a long time, all throughout my 20s. And really when I add it all up, probably beyond that, about the last maybe 16, 17 years, if not longer. And in and out of recovery and all of that. And I vividly remember I was sitting on my bed and I just had this last sort of feeling of desperation. I knew that if I'd continued on the path I was going, I was not going, and this was a Tuesday, I was not going to live to see Friday. And that's not an overstatement or anything. Like, I was dying. And so I made a call. I ended up in a 30-day program on the west side of Michigan. met some really awesome people. Actually, I met from life groups, Ben Palmer, and I met there.
No way, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we met
That's
there,
good.
and he was talking about a place in Prescott, Arizona that he was going to go to for extended care. And so I looked into it, it worked out. And it was this idea of I either go back to what I've always gone back to, or I take a leap. And long story short, there were a lot of signs. My faith was reignited while I was there. And I was praying like crazy, and I feel that God was calling me out here. So I came. I arrived in September of 2018. And the first night I arrived, that evening, we went to a 12-step meeting, as you would do in a treatment program, and it was Elements. And for those who don't know, Elements is the 12-step faith-based recovery meeting that Heights Church is part of Heights Church in the recovery ministry. And from there, it was just like that was the beginning of this awesome sort of apprenticeship. I've met amazing people, Pastor Bob and Earl, and have grown from an attendee to now working in the recovery ministry as the recovery assistant. So
That's beautiful.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned in there that your kind of walk with Jesus got reignited. So I know that, so there's some stages to how that all unfolded. Can you kind of, take us back to the start of like you and Jesus and what that path has been like and how that's been a part of your recovery process and who you are now?
Yeah. So brief history, I was raised in the Presbyterian church, multiple times a week, going to seminar and youth group and Sunday school and all that sort of stuff. And when I graduated high school and entered college, there really wasn't a young adults program or anything like that anywhere that I was at. And in that, I just fell into, I didn't lose my faith. I prayed. I believed I was a Christian. That was what I understood of myself. But it really wasn't until looking back that I realized that at that point in my life, and a lot of through my 20s, my faith was based on hope, just in a hope that there was something better, a hope that I wasn't destined to live what I was living. And a lot of it were like these Hail Mary prayers. But at this program I went to, it wasn't a faith-based program, but I connected with like Ben and some other people, and we started watching sermons online. So a testament to the digital age and accessibility to sermons. So we were watching different sermons from different churches, and it just started to sing to me in a different tone that that I was receiving, wholeheartedly, because for me it was life or death, and for a lot of us in recovery it is life or death. But when I got connected into Heights Church, it was this open arms, and I quickly, I wanted more and more and more and more. Like my thirst had become insatiable, and it was being satisfied through all the programs that, like Elements. I was lucky enough to be a part of the residency program, which was an awesome experience. And it's now set me up to where I'm at today. One of the biggest decisions I made was when I left Michigan, instead of writing a new chapter, so to speak, I closed that book. I shelved it, and I started a new one. And so I'm now, because of residency at Heights, I'm now studying for my Master's of Divinity. I am working towards, hopefully, becoming a military chaplain, a chaplain in the Army. That's where I feel called right now, at least. We'll see if God has something else, but nonetheless, my studies have gone from the arts or whatever, working to have a paycheck, to now working in God's glory and working for God.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome. What does, so you did residency. Let's just touch on that for a minute. I know we've had to pause that because of COVID and all that. So unfortunately that program's not running this year as it should have. And then in the future, hopefully some form version. What, maybe just for people who don't know what residency was, quick,
Sure.
30-second, and then what, and this might be a really, it's probably not a 30-second question, but following that, what was the one takeaway from that you walked away going, man, this was worth it, if there was just one? I know there's more than one, but.
Sure. So residency, it was a 10, 11-month program where, and it can be described, or some would describe it as like a fire hose of information. I mean, we started at the beginning of the Bible with a lot of different classes and just really went into a lot of stuff. A fire hose of information is not quite accurate in my mind. It's like you're in a little dinghy and you go under Niagara Falls. It was so much. At first we were there for it seemed like 12 hours a day on Tuesdays, but it was this amazing introduction into basically, are you called to lay ministry, or are you called to ministry as a profession? And with those, how do you navigate that, and how do you continue to grow, whether it's as a career or just as volunteer? My biggest takeaway, and I think this is a wonderful connection to the current series, was the discipleship. We were assigned a pastor, or a ministry mentor and a personal mentor. And both of those mentors, Tom Garashay is my personal mentor, and Pastor Ron.
I love Tom and Ron. Love both of those guys. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I really, I feel like I got the cream of the crop for those gentlemen to be put into my life. And so then Pastor Ron is my ministry mentor. And the awesome thing is that even though residency has ended, these relationships have continued on. They're actually my mentors for seminary now.
That's awesome.
So, but also just in life, and it goes beyond this passing of information and guidance from, a mentor to a mentee, and it's far more relational. They're my friends. We call each other and just shoot the breeze, or we'll talk about whatever. It's not always about books and understanding and knowledge and things like that.
Well, that's awesome. So you mentioned discipleship, and I think, obviously the series we're in, the connection point to the way of the apprentice, I appreciated how this weekend Chris made the link between the use of Christian versus a follower or disciple or apprentice. Those two are different. And maybe just leaning into the weekend, and this is for either of you guys, but just what's a takeaway from the weekend that you go, man, this was something that either connected to something in the past about discipleship as a reminder, or it's something that has framed up in a new way this process of being an apprentice and what it looks like. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of takeaways. Personally, it's hard to pick just one. And we were talking about this a little bit ago, but the idea of remaining, and not just remaining. And Chris made a comment in the 8:30. I don't know if he said it in the 10:30, but he said, remain. It doesn't mean stop, but it's remain, and looking at it as an action. in this idea of we're hiking or we're walking down a path, and while there's different offshoots in this trail, that we stay the course. We remain in this path that God has laid in front of us as he, lights our way.
Yeah, I love that he pointed out, which I hadn't actually really seen before, this when Jesus has those I am statements about himself in John. He talks about, I'm the bread of life, I'm living water. And those statements, all except for one, are intended for, or at least all except for two, I guess, are intended for like people who don't follow Jesus yet. He's drawing them in, calling them in. But then in John 15, where Chris spent a lot of his time on Sunday, this statement Jesus makes where he says, I am the vine. And this is something for those of us who are following him or apprenticed to him. And I mean, the deep meaning behind that, like lately I've been really soaking in this idea of how the Bible talks about spiritual growth, like what it means to grow. And for us, I mean, for me, I see growth like progress. I'm like, man, if I'm growing, I'm improving, I'm getting better, I'm developing further. Like, it's like you move forward, part of it's, I'm futuristic. I think about the future. I like to keep moving, and a part of it's, I think, it's our culture. It's the way we see a better future is moving forward, where the Bible, and so often, including Jesus there in that statement, being spiritual growth is all about growing deeper. It's about it is that idea of like remaining or staying, where it's like, when a tree grows or a vine grows, it doesn't move forward. It like gets more established, like the roots go deeper, the branches grow stronger. And for me, it's really got me thinking about how I'm perceiving, like, what does it mean for me to grow? Doesn't mean I'm taking new ground, learning new things, like that's part of it, but it's really like, am I rooted? Can I stay where I am in my faith, even when drought hits or winds blow or, unfavorable conditions happen? And I think for me, that's what came to mind when I was listening to Chris, is this idea, like connecting in with Jesus, like at that deep level where my nourishment's coming from him, like a branch from the trunk of the tree or a branch to the vine, and how much do I scramble and like try to push forward when I really need to just stay put and sink roots in. And so that idea of remaining or staying is just really profound for me. I'm still trying to unravel what that all means,
I like that when obviously John 15's in that context of the vine. But when I'm so visual that I can see the branches, I can see the vine. And for me, like when I think about source and I think about fruit, and maybe this is the futuristic piece too, but you think about, if a grapevine is actually going to produce grapes, then that branch has to be drawing from the source. And if that branch is not continually, it only has one job. It only has one role. It'll never be, considered the vine. It's going to always be a branch of the vine. And just that idea of, like, for us, that remaining, like you're talking about, that if you go to a mature vine and the size of those branches compared to an immature, like the growth is in what it's done from remaining and what it, and then obviously what's produced in fruit and all of that. But it's just as beautiful. Like, it's got one role, like stay, like you're saying with the path, like stay, don't veer off, don't, and I think it's interesting. I was telling you guys before, this whole cooking thing is just fun to me. And I don't know, it's kind of relaxing. It's kind of creative. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm into it right now. And, which everybody around me loves because they're eating real well. But it really is step by step. It really is like, you can veer, but if you veer, just know it may not turn out the way it was supposed to, you know? And I think that's even one of the things, like, from remaining for me, is it is an active stay. It is a pay attention. Don't, you know, and so I think, man, I would love to know, what does that look like on a practical level? Because I think midweek we're supposed to get practical and get down to, like, what for me, I think that's where rhythms have become so important. I think, you know, you talk about spiritual disciplines, or for me, I like the word formation much better. But the whole concept of a spiritual formation in my life is so rhythmic. And I'm at the point now where, like, I feel it when I don't have that rhythm. And I think that's a good thing. Like, I don't know. Yeah, but there is this, like, the piece of remaining for me is being connected to the source. And I think that's such an individual journey. And yet there are such similarities that flow with that I think do end up being an encouragement to all of us. But what about you guys? What does remaining look like on a practical level?
Oh yeah, well, I think you apply that same idea to this whole apprenticeship picture, right? Jesus as our, like, apprentice, we're apprenticed to him. He's like the master apprentice. And you think, my mind goes to, like, an old school trade, like blacksmithing. I don't know why I hear apprentice. I see, like, you got the leather aprons on, and you got the heat
Got the
going
fire.
in there,
Yeah.
fire going in there. And I see that, like, what it means to, like, learn a craft and move from an apprentice to a master. In the very, very beginning, you learn some new skills, right? But those skills are limited.
Uh-oh.
He froze for you too, huh?
Did I disappear?
There you
go.
go.
You disappeared.
Oh,
there you go. You're back.
That was weird. You guys both froze up there for a second. So if you go, like, in the early stages of learning, like blacksmithing, right? You do have some skills you got to learn, but all those skills are limited right to the field of blacksmithing, right? It's all focused on become a blacksmith, right? And then at some point, there are no more new skills. It's just do those few things really well. Like, know how to work the metal, know how to hit it, know how to, all the steps that go into it. You don't, okay, and now we're going to, like, no, you're done learning. You don't need any more tools. You don't need any more techniques. You just refine what you know, and you practice them over and over again. So when I think about remaining, I think of, again, like me, I'm always like, I have this instinct to, like, learn something new, start something new, add some new complication to my life. And I think it's actually the opposite. It's really how focused and simple can I make my day, my pursuits, how I spend my time, how I spend my money, my energy, all focused in on the skill of becoming a follower of Jesus. And then those few rhythms, like you're talking about, John, like, do them well. Like, all we need, this is me, all I need is prayer. I need God's word. I need people who love Jesus in my life. I need times of solitude and listening. And that's kind of it, right? Along with work to put food on the table for my family. So why do I then get a new device, start a new account, like, I'm always, like, moving around instead of just staying with those few basic skills. And for me, that's the key to it all, is just hit the basics and keep learning how to do them consistently and well.
Well, and I think what's crazy with that, like, you just made me think of the gaining skills, the hearing the Spirit. Like what I think for me is happening over time is, the more I remain, the more those rhythms are in place, the more sensitive I become, because I've spent time listening for the voice of the Holy Spirit. The more sensitive you become to then the promptings of the Spirit throughout the day. So I think it is that, like, as a blacksmith gets skilled to the point where, you know, they can feel almost every little nuance of what they're doing. I think it's the same for us with the Spirit. We learn how to follow closer in step, where it talks about in Galatians of walk in step with the Spirit. And then in that context is fruit of the Spirit, you know? It's kind of cool. It builds for sure.
It's like sharpening your perception, right? Like I think about a trait like my dad is much better with like stuff with his hands. He can build, he can create. And so he'll do something like look at a piece of wood and he'll know what this wood can and can't do. You know, he'll be like, nah, we're not gonna, you know, put that one aside, or, you know, like, and I'm like, what? It's just what, you know, but his perception has been sharpened so he can be more productive, more fruitful in his craft, you know. And I mean, John, I think you're right on it. Like for us, the skill is walking in step with the Spirit. And as we practice it and hone it, we get more perceptive through the empowerment of the Spirit to walk in the Spirit, and we can hear and listen. And so we face challenges or situations, or, you know, and we get this moment by moment little extra perception that helps us keep in step with him, you know. And Brian, I think about you, man, and I mean, so much of the recovery process, from what I know, I'm a normie, you know, like you guys talk about, you know, so I look at this from the outside in, but I see you guys like hitting, whether it be your 12 steps or whatever other process you have, like you keep after it time and time and time again. There's this repetition, this remaining and sticking with it. I mean, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I don't know if you're as normal as you might think, or normie. No, but I just mean, like, what is normal, right?
Good try,
Normal.
Brian. That's fine, man. It's okay.
No,
I heard I'm not as normal as I think, and I'm good.
But that's for all of us. No, the idea of, for me, when I look at remain, it sort of almost immediately I think of vulnerability. Like when you look at a soldier or soldiers out and they're in a war, right? And they need to hold a position, they need to remain there to hold it. And it may not be the most fortified or best. And it can become vulnerable. We're always looking, like you were saying, like, where do I get cover? What's the next thing? What can give me this security? Where is all this stuff? And I love how Chris made a comment about we can't always see someone's scribbles. Where a person like Chris, maybe his scribbles are a little bit more pronounced on the outside than others. We don't see each other's scribbles or their blank page. And in recovery, you know, it's for us in the recovery ministry, it's beyond substance abuse. You know, it's beyond drugs and alcohol. We have individuals who are struggling with pornography or depression, or just maybe not fitting in or feeling like they fit in anywhere. You know, like another reference to Chris would be like these scraps, these leftovers. And part of this healing comes in embracing that vulnerability, being, you know, how Chris said, like, yes, I'm not sorry. Thank you. I'm blessed. Yeah. For me, and I can only speak to myself in my recovery, I can now see the amazing work that God was doing. You know, when I prayed for death, he didn't give it to me for a reason. And there's all this amazing stuff that can come from that. And sharing our stories is how we help each other to fill in that blank page with, you know, helping disciple and see what God has in store for us.
Brian, as we tie a ribbon on this conversation, you're another one, man, who we could keep rolling for a while with you. I feel like you got a lot under the surface there. We could keep digging and have some really good conversation. We'll have you back around sometime soon for sure. But as people are hearing this conversation, I feel like someone may have been prompted by what you just said, this idea of the need for the vulnerability, feeling like there's scraps that don't have a purpose, that life for them is just scribbles, and they could use some support and help with that. what would be the next step to get in touch with you guys in recovery, knowing that it covers such a broad spectrum? It's not just like a substance like alcohol or drug addiction type thing. There's a wide spectrum of people that you guys love on and help. What would be the next step for someone to take to reach out to you guys in recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would always I'm not going to give my phone number over this. Not that anyone would maybe call, but my email is brian@heightschurch.com, BRIAN@heightschurch.com. And a lot of what I do is just calling people, getting in touch, and finding that best fit within the ministry. We have a Wednesday night men's Bible study right now. We are refining our women's program, so that should be hopefully coming back at some point. But Elements is our in-person 12-step meeting, faith-based, and that is coming back on October 22nd, Thursday night at Heights Church, H1. Yeah, super excited to have, and it's just a wonderful, huge experience. Come as you are, have fun, play games, hear a testimony, learn about the steps, and fellowship with other people who are, perhaps struggling with something that you are as well.
That's beautiful. I know I'm not supposed to play favorites, but man, Elements and Recovery's pretty much probably I'm going to say it's my favorite thing. I think it's one of the best things we got going. So there, I said it. Way better than beans for breakfast. It's legit.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll give you that one.
But man, we appreciate you. Seriously, it's something that a lot of people in our church family never see evidence of, apart from, guys, girls from Elements or Bible study rolling in on a Sunday. But man, it's literally the one of the secret ingredients to what God's doing at Heights that makes it great.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful thing. And you, again, playing to that idea of we don't know each other's scribbles. We sit in H1 on a Sunday and there's hundreds of people there. More likely than not, on a statistical level, there are people who are struggling, believe it or not. And all of us have our own struggles. So yeah, I just would encourage anyone who's just looking to continue that connection and growth beyond any kind of substance abuse included that, but just anything. We often say that recovery ministry is about recovering from life, and how we work together to just disciple and come together in fellowship as the church body.
That's awesome, Brian. John, any parting thoughts for you as we wrap this thing up?
No, man, just love everybody, be safe, and remain. Let's just stay the course.
Beautiful.
Thank you guys for having me on this conversation.
Brian, thank you, man.
Yeah,
you're a rock star, bro. Love you a bunch.
Brian at heightschurch.com, man. Brian at heightschurch.com. Go get it. Go check it out. All right, church fam, as we wrap this thing up, we just want you to know that you are loved, and there's space for you regardless of where you are in life, regardless of what your connection to Jesus looks like, from, figuring out who he is to following him to being his apprentice. There's room and space for you among our church family, and we have a heart to connect with you, to support you, help you, love and care for you. So let us do that. Don't let the barrier of this being online limit what we can do to love and care for you. So the next step for you is just to reach out to us, whether it be in the chat right now. We got a prayer link under this video window. You can jump in there, let us know how we can pray for you. You can jump in on a Sunday, again, in person here at our Prescott campus at 8:30 and 10:30 in the morning. We're online with Church Live on Sundays, 10:30 and 6 o'clock. And then all throughout the week, we have ways to connect, including morning coffee coming up tomorrow morning. Happens every Thursday at 10 o'clock right here on this YouTube channel. So subscribe, and you'll know what's coming up next from us. We're also out there on Facebook and Instagram. We're active on those, and we see those as other ways to connect. So whatever you do, let us love and connect with you, help you move forward in your apprenticeship with Jesus as we learn how to remain, stay, do the hard things well together as we connect to Jesus, our vine. Much love to you. See you Sunday, if not before. Have a great one. If you're on fall break, have a great one. And we'll see you soon. Much love to you guys. Bye for now.